Well, hello everyone, and welcome into our Sunday program. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower. Well, my goodness, every person that's left the Watchtower organization, they all have a story to tell. And some of these stories are quite sad, but you know something? The people always seem to get better after they get out of the Watchtower. So we have a woman who's a former Jehovah's Witness. She hosts two programs here on the six screens. She's got the Saturday night program, Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower. Plus, she also does this program here today. So let's bring Anne Marie on. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday.
Well, thank you very much. Happy Six Screen Sunday to you as well, Anne Marie. So we don't have anyone lined up today, but I'm going to put the call out right now, and I'll put the telephone number up. Let me do that right now. If anyone out there would like to come into the program and tell your story of being in the Watchtower, I'm going to put a number up on YouTube and Facebook. You'll see it, and we'd love to have you come in. Wouldn't that be good, Anne Marie, to get someone new coming in telling their story?
Yeah, this is just a special time for anybody that wishes they could really just let it all out. We don't want to feel like we're begging or desperate, but you notice it too, my brother. A lot of times when people are commenting on something, they start going into their story. And that's why I believe you set aside this time every other Sunday to have the chance for people to come on to tell their story of being in the Watchtower, what it was like for them, what they went through, things that they felt, the regrets, the sadness, the treatment they got, the disappointment when they realized it was all a sham. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me just get this up for us. Just trying to talk and chew gum here at the same time. Get this StreamYard.
You want me to talk while you chew gum?
What's that?
You want me to talk while you chew gum?
Yeah, go ahead and talk to the audience a little bit. When I have to get the. I got to get this phone number up. For some reason, it's not going up. So I want to get that up there for us. All right, good.
Sometimes we have our little issues. No worries. I think this is the best idea, or one of the best ideas you've ever had, my brother. Accommodating those that, kind of start going into their story when basically we're doing a show and they meant to just comment. But, it gets triggered because we all have that hurt inside of us, that sadness, the regret, sometimes, a lot of anger that we have inside, and we just push it down. I don't know about you all, but I know I did. I just pushed it aside because I didn't want to look at it. Any kind of trauma or wrong that was done to us that we can't do anything about, a lot of times just to survive, we just shove it down, we bury it, we walk away, we turn our back and say, I'm just going to focus on right now. But, it needs to come out at some point, and I'm so glad you provide the opportunity for those that feel like talking. So again, as Rick was saying, if anybody thinks, what, I think I'll just tell a little bit of my story. If you just want to talk for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, you know what? This time is set aside specifically for you, for us to listen to you, to validate what you went through, what you're saying, what you're talking about, validate your feelings and your thoughts and your experiences, because I'm sure there's nothing that you could say that we couldn't relate to. And we support you. And that's what we're here for right now on this show on Six Screen Sunday. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their Watchtower story, or what it was like for you being in the Watchtower, coming into the Watchtower, trying to be a good Jehovah's Witness, and coming out, and what it was like for you. Rick, did I talk enough?
Yeah, you did fine. You have no problems filling in. I always appreciate that, Anne Marie. But I'll tell you what. I found something last night that was of real interest. Ex Jehovah's Witnesses, they love to talk to each other. I mean, they can talk for hours. And our six screens program, we used to go all night long. We had programs that went right through the whole night until the next morning. We don't do that anymore. Maybe in time we will do it again, but for right now, we get a little hiatus on all night programming. But what I've found is I leave the conference call open, the telephone line. And even when I ended the program last night, JW World News, we ended about 10:30, 11 o'clock. The people still the people still stayed on and were talking. And so I'm going to start leaving the phone line open for those coming in on Saturday night. It's a great way to converse with ex-witnesses. So, people might feel pretty safe in there because it's not being, broadcasted all over the world. It's just like a private conversation they have with each other. So we're going to kind of promote that a little bit. I think that could be really good for the ex-Jehovah's Witness community.
Yeah, as long as we have somebody to kind of monitor, because sometimes we get some immaturity going on.
The after party last night was really fun.
What's that, Pixie?
The after party last night was really fun. Thank you for leaving the conference call open.
Did it?
The after party was great.
Did it go for?
Let's call it the after party.
All right. Did it go much further after I left?
Yeah, it did. It was really fun. We had a wonderful time.
Well, I'm going to start leaving that open, so that'll be great. Because I know
that works for me on a Saturday night. I can be there for you every Saturday, as far as I know at this point. So it was wonderful.
Well, thank you, Pixie, for saying that. No, it was good, and all the people were in there, and it's really wonderful because see what it is. A lot of people, you would be surprised how many emails I've got that people are scared to death to even watch us on YouTube or Facebook or even dial in on the conference call. They're afraid somehow their number's going to be traced and someone's going to tattle on them. So, they'll listen when it comes up on the archives, but they're scared to death to come on live. And I mean, that's just a fear factor that Watchtower puts in their heads. And I don't know how many people have written me and said, well, the elders might be listening, or my Jehovah's Witness congregants might be listening. Well, they wouldn't be. If they're listening too, they're not going to tattle on you. What are they going to say? I heard it on the 6 screens. But I get a lot of that. People are afraid to come in because of that. And because we do live programming, somehow they feel like, Watchtower can trace them and find out who's listening. But, that's not going to happen. So don't let that frighten people. But it really does, Anne-Marie. It's silly, huh?
I think so much of our conditioning, so many witnesses after a certain number of years, in their own minds, they are policing themselves.
That's funny you say that. That is certainly one of the characteristics of a high control society, which a Watchtower is. Can you imagine that? Do they actually have people having their own minds think things that are not true? And this all comes from conditioning. I mean, the Watchtower is a master at controlling people. They really
also saying no to things that are quite legal to do, but they're not Jehovah's Witness things. And so in their own mind, they're censoring the self.
Well, there's a lot of that going on. I think I used to do that myself when I was a Jehovah's Witness.
I think we all did some of it. And then the Jerry Bergman material that was from, I think, the 1970s, I want to say he was a psychologist PhD, but he ended up working in a nut ward with all witnesses that had paranoid delusion. So I wonder how many just sitting next to me had delusions. I wonder how many people that were longtime witnesses even may have had dissociative identity disorder where they got a second personality going. I've got all kinds of questions that'll never be answered because I'm not going to be working at a PhD level in shrinkology, but they're valid questions and somebody's looking into it somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's we had Dr. Jerry Bergman on the program numerous times in the past when we first started 20 years ago. Well, he came on probably about 15 years ago. But we used to have a man called Rich. His name was Richard Rowe. He's dead now, it's sad to say. But he was a great host. He had a program on the 6 screens called Dialogue. And he had that for about, I'd say, 4 or 5 years. And he knew Dr. Jerry Bergman personally. And so Dr. Jerry Bergman came on a number of times. And we're trying to retrieve all of those calls that we had with him. They're here, and I have my daughter who is a graphic artist and pretty good with the internet. She's trying to get all of these old calls up in the archive so that you can go back and listen to them. But we love to have Bergman come on because he told us so many things. Of course, he wrote the book Jehovah's Witnesses and the Problem with Mental Illness. And they do have a problem with mental illness, big time. And as a matter of fact, I mean, some of the things I remember he said, and I remember from his book, that Jehovah's Witnesses have 4 times the mental illness problems than the average folk. Yeah, can you imagine that? 4 times as much.
I believe that, and I also have seen, even with my own associates, when I was at the Kingdom Hall, and even some family members, you would ask them a question, and they would go into quoting verbatim witness boilerplate paragraphs, so that you weren't really talking to your friend, acquaintance, or family member. They would just respond with this paragraph as an answer.
Yeah, what you got to
And
do?
that always troubled me.
What you got to do too, Pixie, is turn the TV down when you're talking because we're getting some echo
I
coming.
have the TV on.
Is that right? All right.
I've got nothing on here. I'm in a quiet room.
All right.
Talking privately.
Or it must be somebody else. It's got to be someone else then. Yeah. Yeah. What you do, folks? If you're not talking, let me just set some rules here for the 6 screens. It's a conference call. What happens when you leave your phone unmuted? It creates a lot of static on the line. It makes my job 10 times harder because I have to keep going back muting people. So if you can remember, and it's hard too because even I do it myself sometimes. But when you're talking, you know, if you want to speak up, hit *6, and then when you're done talking, hit *6 again, and that will mute you. And remember too, if you have the TV, YouTube going in the background, it's going to really create some issues. So just wanted to bring that up. Well, Anne Marie, you probably read the book Jehovah's Witnesses and the Problem of Mental Illness, right?
No, I'm sorry. I've heard a lot about it, but I have not read it.
Yeah. Well, I think we had another man that wanted to come in. Who was that wanted to come in and say hello?
It's Matthew, but I was happy listening to Anne Marie and Pixie and all of you, and basically just wanting to say hello from South Africa.
Well, hello, Matthew. Good to hear from you. My goodness. So what day is it over in South Africa? You guys ahead of us or behind us?
Yeah, we ahead, but you're earlier today, so it's still Sunday the 2nd, and the time is almost 9:30 in the evening.
Oh, in the evening. Wow. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, we have daylight savings time. They don't have that in Africa?
No, we don't have it. We just have to slot in with whatever happens to you over there in the States.
Yeah. America, man. I don't know. I guess there's other countries I think that have it. I mean, I'm not particularly fond of it. I like it kind of lighter at night. Now, what's going to happen now here, at least in New England where I live, it'll be dark today. The sun's going to set around 4:20, 4:30, somewhere around there. But you get into December, and it's like pitch dark out here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know?
Rick, I wanted to just say something about you leaving the phone line open. I've been having really good discussions with Zachary and, of course, Pixie. And so really appreciate that facility where there isn't that pressure that anybody might be triggered. It's a lot more relaxed. But overall, my own sense is that 6 screens and the network and the various connected, let's say, affiliates are actually doing a really great job with just healing and freeing up the communication that is part of our humanity. and I think that's really important. And personally, I feel that progress. I sense that progress. I think the generosity that's there among the community is actually phenomenal. It's long, how can I say, overdue or needed. I realize that you've been operating for a very, very long time, but that hasn't always been open to a lot of people, Rick, but the growth is now seeping into, let's say, all corners of the planet, and we can see some real good progress. So I think what I'm expressing more than anything here, more than just a personal story, is just gratitude to everybody that's consistent, like Anne-Marie, and having to deal with, as she says, our sunburn and maybe some of the triggering that happens. But then that's all part of the healing process. It's all part of the healing interactions. And I think we're in a good place. I don't know how you feel.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I mean, when I first started this, it really was very difficult. I mean, the Watchtower was going gangbusters. That's all you heard was good news about the Watchtower. I mean, it really had the public information department putting out nothing but good news. The conventions and the witnesses were coming, and there wasn't any cynical, critical news back then, 20 years ago. And I was very disappointed when I came out of the Watchtower that I put so many years of my life in that organization, and gave them money, my time, gave up time with my family, and I gave it all to the Watchtower. And then, of course, when I went down in the year 2000 to Watchtower headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, and spoke with Brother Loesch, and had a potential position on the governing body, I could see that this was not the truth. So I didn't know what to do. I said, gee, I know this is not the truth. This is nothing but a big business masquerading as religion. It's a money-making scheme. I could see right through it. So what I really thought of doing, well, let me try to contact other witnesses. And at the time, other people left the Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-witnesses who I wanted to contact. So I really tried my hardest to try to reach these people, but there wasn't a whole lot out there. As a matter of fact, some of the apostates back then, they thought that they were the only ones ever that disagreed with the Watchtower. That's how sad it was. And I would come home from work on Saturday, and I'd start the program at 6:30 at night. And it was, we didn't have YouTube and Facebook and all the TikToks and all the networks. All we had was a telephone line. So I figured out how to set up like a conference call where we could have a bunch of people talking on at once. And then, I came on, we got a few people, and the snowball started rolling down the hill. People liked the idea of it, but as I was saying earlier, they were so afraid that someone was going to catch them on here. And they still feel that way,
Do you find that it's just kind of breaking things open, that you're hearing more of Bethel tuning in, or it's almost like persons are very trapped, but they're trying to seek a way out, and so they actually are tuning in?
Well, I'll tell you what really changed the whole dynamics here. One of the things that changed was in January of 2010. I can still remember, it was January 1st, 2010. And the whole ball game here changed somewhat. We got a call from a young man who claimed he was in Bethel and he was hiding in a closet. And I couldn't believe that, because I'm thinking that could never happen. This is a scam. And so I kind of went along with him at first when he came on, but he said, no, really, Rick, he says, I'm a Bethelite. I'm here at Brooklyn, New York, world headquarters, 25 Columbia Heights. And he says, I have to tell you, he says, I'm listening in, and I've had it with the Watchtower, but I can't leave right now. His father and mother were staunch witnesses, and he'd be in a real pickle. So he says, but I believe what you're doing here is proper and good, and you're exposing this. But nobody believed him, Matthew. I mean, they all thought this was a joke, including even me. But the more he talked, I said, gee, this guy he seems like he's for real. And then what he did was he contacted me off of the air and told me he never gave me his real name. He gave me a fake name because he was scared to death that someone might rat on him. But he was the first to really step out of Bethel. And what he told us was just shocking. And, I couldn't believe it. But he said that, he worked in the IT department of the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. And he was like a ringleader there. He knew a lot about IT, which he did. And he didn't give me his name, but we called him Johnny the Bethelite. And Johnny would share things with us that just were over the top. And he mentioned on the program that there's 12 people that were working in Bethel at the time in the IT department that were monitoring the internet. They were looking for everything they could find of people talking against the Watchtower. So they assigned the Bethelites in the ID department certain websites they would monitor. And they gave Johnny the Bethelite the 6 screens of the Watchtower to watch our conference calls. And also they gave him Facebook because they wanted to catch people on Facebook. So, I thought that was kind of a crazy thing because I'm thinking, well, if he's going to get in and listen to this and they got 11 other men, could be women, I suppose, too, but 11 other people listening into programs that are, telling people how wicked the Watchtower is, wouldn't these people leave? But he says every day they were instructed. This kind of made sense to me. He said every day before they would start work, because that's what they did all day, and they get on these forums like Reddit and JWN, all these so-called Bethelites would check these sites out. But what really got my attention is the fact that an older brother every day would speak with them before they started listening into these programs by ex-witnesses. And the brother would encourage them not to, listen and believe what they're saying because they're agents of Satan. They're not telling the truth. They're liars. So that kind of explained away how they were getting away with this. But he said that what happened is when I got this fellowship, it was the first recording ever in the history of those that were leaving the Watchtower to actually have a recording of their judicial hearing. And I recorded the whole thing when I was disfellowshipped in 2005. And this guy, Johnny, listened to it. And he said that really is what got him out of the so-called truth. And what bothered him the most is my former wife. Her name was Inez. And she was sick. She was very she was subject to seizures. She had a brain hemorrhage, and she would have seizures. And she was the first really to start questioning the Watchtower even before I did. So she kind of convinced me that it's wrong. It's not a truthful organization. And so they wanted to disfellowship her and me the same night. But she was sick the night that the Judicial Committee hearing was going to meet. So I went down there and I told them that my wife couldn't meet because she was sick. And they knew that. They knew she had seizures. She had a lot of medical issues. So what they did is they disfellowshipped her in absentia. In other words, they do this. Even if you don't show up, you're guilty. In other words, it's like the court systems here in America. You don't show up for your court case, you lose through default. So they disfellowshipped her. And Johnny the Bethelite was listening into that, and it really bothered him. He said, that wasn't fair that your wife was disfellowshipped. She was sick. She couldn't even make a defense for herself. But, she wasn't totally rattled over the whole thing. And even was I, when I was disfellowshipped, I was glad that Satan kicked me out of his organization. So but I just went through the motions. I wanted to get it on recording. And then I even had the appeal. I filed an appeal. Because I didn't want to go back, but I was just doing it to see if I could capture some stupidity online, which I did, in the committee hearing. And so consequently, I mean, at that time, we both left and we said, look, we got to really do something here to expose the Watchtower. So we started this conference call. But I can remember when we did it, there was very few people coming in. And then all of a sudden, there was only about 5 other people on YouTube at the time. But right now there's well over 150 people doing YouTube videos about the Jehovah's Witnesses. These are all ex-witnesses, and they're all, I don't care what they do, they're all doing a good job. They're my brothers and sisters. We're all united together fighting against the Watchtower, Matthew.
Well, it seems to me that with the various perspectives, that with each one that I'm noticing, in my humble opinion, or from what I can see, it's the authenticity that's been needed for a very long time. So yes, maybe somebody has gone with a particular philosophy or with a particular religious viewpoint or a particular spiritual practice, or has left religion completely, or said, no, I don't want to touch this at all. But what is coming through is the allowance of authenticity, which is enabling people to have truth that is flowing. And from what I can see, it's that truth that's facilitating the healing. And when you were saying, oh, you recorded the judicial process, that's the witness, because it's denied. You're going through an unfair situation, or a situation that's weighted or that's coerced. And I know for myself, I needed to have recordings of what was going on for my own mental sanity. And I was advised by the coordinator of one branch, and he says to me, Matt, I'm going to give you some advice right now. Just record everything. And if you can't get a device in, learn how to do transcripting. It's very, very important. And just transcript and everything as often as you can. And I think that is very, very good advice, so that you can look back, just so that your own mind isn't railroaded.
Yeah, in fact, I was really wondering how I could record that, because, I want to be a conscientious man. I didn't want to lie to them, because the first thing they ask you when you go into the Judicial Committee hearing, the first thing they'll ask you, do you have a recorder? So I knew that was coming up. So what I did is I took an old Watchtower publication, and I had a little Sony recorder, one of those little tiny ones. And I was able to take a razor blade and I cut out a little space inside the book where I could place the little recorder. And then I made a few little pinholes in the cover so the recorder could pick up the sound. So I placed the book on the table, and you couldn't see it. It was really good. And so the recorder was there going. So I'm saying, now they're going to ask me, and I don't want to really come on and lie to them. I mean, they asked me, do you have a recorder? I just didn't have it in my heart to say no. So I said, how do I get around this? So what I do is I always used to record a lot of the talks in the Kingdom Hall when I was a card-carrying witness. So I had that recorder that I record the talks with in my brief bag as well. So when they said, Rick, is this being recorded? So I took the recorder out of the book bag, and I said, this recorder scares you guys, huh? I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to empty the batteries out of it right now. So I emptied the batteries out. They fell on the desk. And so they were satisfied with that, not knowing the other recording was going all the time. And so, it's, I got everything they said. And, the craziest thing, Matthew, I was in that Judicial Committee hearing for 3.5 hours. And so anyways, when I was done, they said, okay, Rick, now you go out and sit in the Kingdom Hall and we'll call you in. So I was out there for about, I'd say, a half hour. And so I was so anxious to hear what they said when I left. I could hardly wait to get home to play the recording. And I couldn't believe what they said when I was out of the room. They said, well, because I talked about the pedophilia in the Watchtower and how they're having problems with that. I talked about how they joined the United Nations. I talked about, I believe, Johannes Grieber and some of this other stuff. And so what they said on the recording when I was out of the room, they said, Rick was 90% correct in what he said. They were discussing that among themselves. There was 4 elders in there, and they said Rick was 90% correct. See how they're hiding this stuff? They know all this stuff is true, but they're keeping it from the congregation. And it really was remarkable. It really gave me a sense of power over these guys, because I'll tell you what, the only place they have power is in the Kingdom Hall. Outside the Kingdom Hall, these elders have no power over you at all. But boy, I'll tell you, they really try to control the people, as we know. But I wanted to bring Anne Marie. Anne Marie, if you're out there, I want to bring Anne Marie back in. I wanted to get just back to Johnny the Bethelite. Anne Marie really loved it when Johnny used to come on. Are you there with us, Anne Marie?
Right here with you, my brother. I just wanted to say one thing about you're recalling your judicial committee. I thought that you heard the brothers say when you were out of the room on the recording that you were way more than 90% wrong. I thought they said more like 95, 97%.
I believe it was 90. No, it was 10% that I was wrong on. But I heard them talking on that recording that, Rick, when he talked about the pedophilia, he says, we have problems right now. He says, the elders were discussing it, but they didn't want to admit it,
Right, but we remember that the main problem, the number one rule above everything is absolute, unquestioning obedience and loyalty to the party, just like during the Gestapo regime, the Third Reich. And that's the whole thing. And it's sad. It's so, so sad. And you wanted to hear about Johnny. What was it about Johnny?
Yeah, I wanted you. I know you really followed him, and you were one who totally believed in him. And as I was telling Matthew, there were so many people that would really deny that Johnny was a real Bethelite. And it really used to tick me off and you off and other people too. Yeah. So what?
You were just nicer about it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, tell Matthew and tell the audience your feelings about Johnny.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I was actually on the line late at night. I forgot how many years ago it was, like 15 years maybe,
Yeah,
my brother?
Actually 15 years, yep.
Yeah, it was, I was still relatively new to the six screens, and I remember it was very late at night, and I was out, outside in the dark, smoking a cigarette, and, we were just talking casually, not too many people on the line, and all of a sudden, we heard a hesitant, quiet male voice saying hello, and you could barely hear him. You said hello, and he hesitated. It was the hesitancy, and you could actually feel the fear in the guy's voice, the apprehension. And you said, hello, who's this? And very quiet. And then you said, you can call me Johnny. And you were like, okay, Johnny, like, you were open to whatever he was going to say or whoever he was. People accuse you of just, being fooled, or you set it up, or it was a scam, and that's just not true. When he finally said he was talking to you from Bethel, but it was in this quiet, kind of scared voice, you kind of chuckled like, yeah, right. But you didn't say that. You said, oh, from Bethel, huh? And he said, yeah. And you said, well, where from Bethel are you calling? And he said he was in a closet. And you almost sounded like you were going to bust up laughing. I mean, you were open to it being true, but at first you didn't really believe him. And I kind of did, because I'm a very open person. And if I don't know, how do I know what I don't know? But little by little, he cautiously told you what was going on, that he was taking a big chance. He didn't know how much time he had. And you just went along with it and validated him. And over the years, yes, I heard almost every phone call when he came on the six screens. He would come on when he could, because he was always, knowing that he could be caught at any time. And over time, by and by, as you well know, you and Susan became his confidants, his spiritual parents. And anybody that doesn't believe, then I have to say they haven't heard over the years that he was on the six screens, the dreariness, the exhaustion, the fear, and he got to a point where he was scared because his best friend in Bethel, who was also in his little group of trying to get the truth about the truth out there and basically being a double agent or an agent, secret agent, his best friend's girlfriend, who was also at Bethel, suddenly disappeared and nobody knew where she was or what had happened to her. And poor Johnny, you could hear the shaking in his voice. And let's just entertain the thought that some people think it was all fake. Oh yeah, it's all fake. Nobody can fake that, especially not for that long. And he did mention at one time that if anything ever happened to him, that he had something hidden away. Well, it never came out. I think he got caught. I think they strung him along and, he's gone. And you know what I believe? I believe they killed him or had him killed. It's too easy. It would be too easy to do because he was trapped at Warwick. And he calls you saying, Rick, I can't take it anymore. I got to get out of here. And he said a friend or two or three of his also wanted to escape out of Warwick. Because if anybody saw aerial view of Warwick, it's like way out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded on three sides by forests and one side by a lake. And he wanted to escape, and you sent him tickets, and he got out, and he called you from Brooklyn. I remember you said, he was so relieved and so happy, telling you he was safe and you were all happy, and that's the last you heard from him. Now, how easy would it be? And he already mentioned a few times, I think they're on to me. I think they're just keeping me around because of what I do for them. But it's like he knew his days were numbered. But when he got back to Brooklyn and he called you, Rick, I remember how excited you were. You said, oh, Johnny's okay. He called me. Sounds so great, blah, blah, blah. Well, we also know that Watchtower still had brownstones that were owned, by Watchtower. And I'm sure other Bethelites who were still in Brooklyn could stay there like a safe house. And I believe personally that he was staying there because they would know where he was. They would want to know where he was, and they would want to know that he felt he was safe. And how easy would it be for him to be there a day or a few hours and say, oh, hey, Johnny, we're having some issues over at old, Bethel. We're coming to pick you up. I bet you that, to me, that's the most believable scenario. However they did it, I believe he thought he was safe because nobody ever heard from him again. That's not normal, especially because he always called you and Susan secretly. And to hear nothing, not a postcard, nothing. And then when you and Dick, after almost a year or so, a few months later, you both drove over to Brooklyn and went to the coffee shop where he used to kind of sit in a corner and be on the show or whatever. And you talked to the barista there. And she said, oh, yeah, he used to sit at that table over there in the corner. Oh, no. She described him. You described him. And she said, oh, yeah, he used to sit over there. And you asked how long it had been since she had seen him. Just as long as we all know he's been gone. And the last time he came on the six screens, I believe, was January 19th, 2019. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he came on and he sounded worse than he had ever sounded. So down in the pit of the dumps of depression. He said that he and his friends had discovered on the deep, dark web that the Watchtower higher-ups, a lot of them, not just at Brooklyn Bethel, but all over, were involved in heavy-duty, not only child pornography, but sex trafficking of children. Yes, that is what he said. And it can still hopefully be found on Rick Farron SoundCloud. Look up January 19th, 2019. I'm pretty sure that's the date, but that was the last time we heard Johnny's voice on the six screens. Thank you, Rick, for letting me say that, because I champion Johnny.
Well, thank you, Emery. I wanted you to come on because you add credibility to it, but we got so much negative feedback from Johnny because he was the first really to step out of the realm of the Watchtower. Now, of course, there's other Bethelites that are coming out and talking and even in there still, but he was the first to do it. And of course, what happens to people who do things first? What happens to pioneers? They get arrows in the back. But so many people didn't believe him. Susan and I did, because as you said, we became like surrogate parents to him. He called us numerous times, late at night, so no one would hear what was going on and tell us his family problems and his brother's problems. And so we got to know him pretty well. Never met him in person. We were ready to meet him in person. We were going to go down to the Stanley Theater for an annual meeting when they had it. And we were going to be outside. He was invited to go into the annual meeting. We're going to meet for the first time. But Hurricane Sandy, or that superstorm Sandy, came by in New Jersey and knocked that. Well, they didn't have it. They canceled the annual meeting there for that week. But anyways, what happened is it was a remarkable thing knowing him. And he talked about so many things that took place before it took place. He talked about the cart witnessing, for example. Now, he said that, and this was like a year ahead of time that he talked about this. He said, Rick, he came on the program. He said the Jehovah's Witness organization, they're getting these elite pioneers to go out, and they're calling it the Manhattan Project. The same as WW2, they had a Manhattan Project, but they called it Manhattan Project because what it was these elite pioneers, well chosen by the Watchtower, were going to go through the city of New York, Manhattan, and with a little cart with literature on it. And it was a test program for the cart program that we know today. And that's exactly what Johnny, he told us that a year and a half ahead of, a year before it even happened. And then, of course, they came out with the cart work. But there's other things he said, too. He told us a year before the Gray Goose, the new world translation, that gray colored one they have, was going to come out. He says they got a new revision, and nobody knew that. So he knew it, and he shared it with us on the program. But people used to doubt him so much, and he used to really drive all of us, because we had many people too that did believe him, but it drove us all nuts when people would call up and challenge him. And I remember one night, and I still laugh at this when I tell the story, they were really trying to trap Johnny. They were really trying to say, Rick, see, we got him. You were a phony. You're just using him for sensationalism. But one night I laughed so much when a man called up into the program, and Johnny had his own program on here. It's called Jehovah's Underground. And he came on for 2 years doing that program and speak with the audience. And I'd always tell people who doubted him, come on to his program. Come on. And Johnny used to do it from a coffee shop in New York. He didn't do it in a closet. He went to a coffee shop and he ran the program from there. But anyways, the point I wanted to make with this is a man called up one night and he was doubting Johnny. He said, Johnny, if you're really for real, I'm going to ask you a question. So Johnny says, well, what do you want to ask? He says, well, if you're really there at 25 Columbia Heights, the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses in Brooklyn, New York, he says, I'm just going to ask you a question. Now, if you walk out the front door of Columbia Heights, 25 Columbia Heights, and you take a right and you walk down the sidewalk, what is the third street to the left? Well, Johnny couldn't answer that. So I'll ask you, the audience, the same question. If you walk out of your house right now, walk down the side, walk out, turn right, walk down the street. Tell me the third street on your right. Do you know that? I don't think there's anybody in this program. I don't know it, okay? Even people living in the same neighborhood for 50 years probably don't know the answer to that question. But these are the type of questions they were asking him to try to disprove that he was a Bethelite. But if you want to get in there, Amory's right. Go to SoundCloud, Rick Ferrin SoundCloud. Look up the program Jehovah's Underground, and you can listen to many of his. In fact, all of his programs are in there. So that's amazing. So, anyways, I enjoy talking about this, but yeah, it is a sad end of it. when he came on talking about the sex trafficking and what have you, I mean, so many people could never wrap their head around the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses, or the officials, the higher ups of the Watchtower, would ever be engaged in sex trafficking. And then all of a sudden, and just recently, when we had the convention up here, the ex-witnesses coming up and having the convention, we had a woman tell her story. She's had a program here on the 6 screens for 3 weeks, and she's not doing it anymore because of the ridicule that she's received. And she was trafficked in the Watchtower. She was taken off as a young girl by elders, and they had sex with her in a motel. Now, that's hard to believe, right? But she's sincere and she's truthful. So Johnny talked about this. It's true, folks. Isn't that something?
It's really, go ahead.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Anne-Marie, go ahead. Didn't mean to intervene there.
No, the show is for the callers. Thank you so much. Go ahead, dear.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Rick's experience there with Johnny, because the pattern replicates in other places in the world. You talk about these things, and I think because it's Rick's show here, it's always got to be backed up with something that's credible. So we can say, oh yes, this happened to me, or it happened to me, unless you've actually got somebody to validate it, or if you've got some tangible evidence, you can't really speak about it. You can talk about a pattern, or you could say, oh well, I'll make this my verbal affidavit online, and I will take responsibility for that. But the things that I can talk about to validate Rick's experience, well, it's on South African legal records. When anything goes into the court system, I'm going to have that same experience as Rick. I'll just say yes, it fits the pattern. That and it's difficult to talk about because it's not. It's the human profane nature to talk about these abuses that happen. They are disturbing, but yeah, I had oversight in my situation. It was the same pattern, and it's incredible. I was just rationalizing, oh, this is a Judas situation. This is somebody that's lost it or gone renegade, and it doesn't happen so much. But as the decades rolled by, yeah, I could see, yes, this is definitely what occurred. I know in my situation, my overseer that I trusted tremendously, who's on the convention program, who's involved in Gilead, that's exactly the same story, wrapped up in, yes, sadly, child abuse. My next captain, same thing, arrested and actually served prison term. So it went through the South African court system, and it's all on record, it's all transcribed. But I remember what was said in the upper echelons. They said, as soon as he comes out of prison, we are going to welcome him back like the prodigal son with wide open arms. And I looked at this and I went, this is incredible. Yeah, we should forgive. We shouldn't hold grudges. But this isn't a person who has got down on their knees or shown any kind of remorse. I actually fear that when they come and contact me, that they're going to get me embroiled. I can't actually. I've got to make a decision and say that I don't actually want to associate with this person or have anything to do with them. And when they came out of prison, I said, I can't actually be tied up with you. You're a charming character. You're a powerful character. You've got tremendous insight into how things work. But I have to make a choice. I can't actually associate with you. And I had to break off contact with these people. I had to just block phone calls. I had to block all kinds of communication because it kept recurrent. And the people that were involved, it wasn't always, the psychology is such that they can get people to enjoy it. This is the incredible thing. The mind job is that you have people going, we enjoy the charm, we enjoy this, what's been done, and it's all grooming. Anyway, I'm talking too much, but I'm validating your experience.
Please continue. This is extremely interesting and important.
Well, it's on record, Anne-Marie. So that's the thing, you know, to just talk and talk and talk about something without having some kind of substance. Well, that's no good. But you can go into the South African court system and you can look up these. I'm not going to call out the names on big screens because, you know, YouTube is regulated. We do know that it's listened to as well. I mean, I have a call, when was it, Friday or Saturday? Yeah, Friday. And Bethel is tuning into these things and kind of blasé about it. They don't, it's like they almost don't care. They just say, yo, Matt, we listened to this the other day, blah, 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 and quoting some of the things. And I'm going, well, why aren't you removing yourself from this? And they're going, yeah, well, we caught up in fiduciary systems and we caught up in legal and trapped, and it's complex, and we're also trying to do good for people who don't know any better, and they're going, this is just our choice. We're trying to dismantle things. And yes, I get that it's a very, very complex situation. Some have got families that, with good intentions, somewhere along the line in the past, made up trust funds and things like to get their families involved. And so, you know, assets have all been put into the organization or been put into these, you know, museums and all of their various facilities and things like that. And so it's become like a business. And they're going, yeah, let's let it wind down and let's take care of the business. But the situation that I'm talking about, which matches Rick's story, well, that you can go into the court system and you can ask for the transcripts. You can say, what actually happened here? Why did this person end up in prison? And then what was the attitude? What was the attitude of the persons that were in the higher echelons? Not everybody, because it's wheat and the weeds all mixed together, but what was the general feeling among the higher echelons? And I will say this to persons that I've trained or that I've associated with. I say, yeah, you remember this, Jack. You remember exactly the attitude. They will welcome him back with open arms. I mean, is that because now we're selling forgiveness and we say, well, there's no crime too big? You can commit murder like Moses. You can bury your the Egyptians in the sand and say, well, that makes a good leader because that is humanity's darkest nature. So that proves that God's kingdom can overcome the worst of the worst of the worst. And that's the leadership model. The leadership model is Moses. People who
Matthew, their leadership model, Matthew, is psychopathy, and they cannot be rehabilitated according to the shrink literature. And they don't care about the young born-ins. And how many countries do they have branches in? And I think the posthumous book by Virginia Dufresne, she might have been a witness. I don't know anything about that. But just because you wouldn't and I wouldn't doesn't mean they would.
Yeah. Look, the Pixie, you started off with two good books, two really good books, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Not everybody is for those books.
Yeah, but those books go into the psychology, plain and simple. If anybody is able to let's put it this way. Let's be responsible. Connect with a proper licensed health professional.
There's a book called Snakes in Suits. It's a business manager book. And in Snakes in Suits, they note how most of the CEOs in the world are narcissistic people that you would not normally have a luncheon with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, I think that
Well-
this book by Miss Dufree, who died, I think she was a witness girl. I'm not sure. I haven't read the book. I'm trying to have a happy personal life now, because I can't save the world.
Well, that's the healthy outlook. It's going, well, we are in a world with the sacred and the profane, and
Yes.
if we've gone down this route of trying to rally together government and enforcement agencies, and we have a situation like Norway. I've been told by family, Matt, are you not getting it in your head? Over how many years have you been trying to pursue this? Do you not see the pattern over how many years? Do you not believe you should just let karma, or you should let what people reap what they should sow? Don't you think you should let it just naturally play out?
It will in time, but it may take a
Yeah.
long time. The wheels of justice turn slow.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying to Rick, I think the discussion helps. I see Joe and Fran are writing in the comments, I put snakes in suits, but also Miss Dufree. Is that correct? Miss Dufree, just for the audience?
She's that,
live chat.
I haven't read her book, and she died. But somebody told me a long time ago there was a news story that she had been a witness girl.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about any of this. But I just read the newspaper.
Sure. Well, Eisen, Howard, what was the witness connection there? I mean, it's very interwoven.
He was a Bible student. Eisenhower's mother was a Bible student, and when he had the great privilege of going to West Point, which is one of the on the pain, his mother wept because, of course, the witnesses are very anti-war, and he became, of course, a great general and a president of the United States. So that's known everywhere. It's no secret at all. And there's a beautiful bronze of him showing two sides of Ike. One is a young man, another bronze shows him as a general, and it's a beautiful brand new double figure bronze. So, yeah, we've got smart people, could be, but they got a brick on our head. They don't want us to be great.
Pixie, always good talking with you. I think I'm going to let go to Rick because I see Maverick is talking in the live chat. He's going, what are we talking about?
Wonderful.
Yeah, let me take back over here. I want to share. In fact, the Pixie's talking about books here. Romy Maple, of course, I want to mention. She came up to the convention we had back here in August. And Romy, she's a former Jehovah's Witness. She was on she did a great documentary program. Many of you might have saw her. It was an hour program about how she was abused when she was a young Jehovah's Witness and how she went to the Watchtower headquarters and they didn't want anything to do with her. But she did write a book. In fact, she's going to be in New York. I believe it's this weekend. I believe she's up there right now. She's going to have a book signing. She has a new book coming out, and it's not for sale right yet, but it's all about her trek in the Watchtower. And this is going to be a very good book. As a matter of fact, in Times Square in New York, they have a big television screen. Some of you guys probably saw it when you see Good Morning America or Fox News. Once in a while, they show it. And it's a big screen in Times Square where, people who release a book that might have some momentum behind it, given a little credibility right there in New York City. And so she went up, I believe it's this weekend, where she's going to be on that screen, and she's going to have a book signing in New York. So we certainly wish Romy Maple the best. Romy had a program here on the 6 screens about 3 years ago, and she did a great job. So, Romy, we wish you the best with that book. I'm just trying to see now the name of the book. Okay, no, she's going up to Times Square. I'm sorry. I thought it was this weekend, but it's November 20 and the 20th and the 21st. And I mean, it's a real honor to have, them put you on that big screen TV. So, Yeah, we're looking forward to the book. I don't see the title of the book here, but it has to do a lot with what happened to Romy and how the Watchtower, of course, denied all of this. It was a big scandal, and we're looking forward to that book, Romy. So we wish you the best. So, Anne Marie, is still there with us?
Right here in my
Yeah, well, we'll probably go for another 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll go to JW World News Sunday edition. But anything you want to bring up here?
Well, if it's okay, I was listening about Johnny and what you had said, and I was writing down things that Johnny had brought out that people think was crazy. And one of them was one you already mentioned. He did say way ahead of time before it happened that there would be a new Bible translation, a new world translation coming out, which the witnesses didn't know that happened. He talked about the coming name change from Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower Bible, and Tract Society, how they were slowly going to be rebranding the witness organization. And they had kind of heard of it, but it was just so slow and subtle. But it happened. He also said there would be a gradual down to nothing reduction of the magazines coming out. We remember that every single week for so many years, there was a new magazine. Then we had the 1st of the month, Watchtower. Then on the 8th of the month, we had the Wake. And then on the 15th of the month, we had another Watchtower. And last week on the 22nd of the month, we had the New Awake. And this was every single month, every single year for decades upon decades. And now, not only do we have almost no magazines being produced, they cut them down from the standard 32 pages to barely 16. I think they actually have a combined Watchtower and Awake. They did everything so gradually. It's almost like the witnesses are brain dead. They don't really see what's going on. They just accept it. It's like they say, you put a frog in a pot of cold water and gradually turn the heat up. The frog doesn't know what's going on. He also said that the Watchtower would be gradually, slowly changing over to a digital religion, more videos, more broadcasting, just less and less printed material, fewer meetings, and they cut out the ministry school. They cut out, I think, the service meeting. They changed that. They got rid of the book study. And also, just to add credence to what I was saying, I talked personally to Johnny several times when he would be on the show taking personal calls. So he spoke to me directly. And, I heard his voice and I said, Johnny, I hear the stress and the tiredness, the fatigue. And I just want you to know, I and others are praying for you. And the way he said, thank you, like he was drowning and just getting tired of even trying anymore. And he told me directly how much you and Susan meant to him more than once. So I just wanted to verify all that. I am not just talking off my head. I know what I feel I know. Thank you so much, Rick.
Well, Emery, that's interesting you say that. It's really, when you stop and think about all of this, I can't go on the record to say, well, I believe the Watchtower murdered Johnny the Bethelite. But I'm going to tell you something. The Mafia is quite a scandalous organization. And the Watchtower, of course, is very much like the Mafia. But I don't want to disrespect the Mafia here either. But I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to money, and you guys know it, when it comes to money, and the Watchtower is a multi-billion-dollar organization, money can move people to do certain things. When Johnny was talking about sex trafficking, his last program, sex trafficking, and some of the officials of the Watchtower involved in kiddie porn, this is bad news for the Watchtower. This could really be something that could bring them down financially if the world found out about that. So what I'm thinking here is Johnny very well could be on the bottom of the Hudson River in New York City. Now, don't take that to the bank and say Rick Ferrin said that. I'm just thinking it. I mean, why wouldn't I think of it? This is a very scandalous organization. That these guys will do anything. Geez, if they can cover up child abuse and little kids getting abused and not even bother them, it wouldn't bother them to bump a few people off. And we've had people come on, say they know about murders in the Watchtower, but nothing could ever be substantiated. So it's hard to really make a claim that this happened. And we'll never know. There's a lot of mysteries in life. But Johnny the Bethelite disappeared quickly, came on the program. And what really startled me is, he says, Rick, I want to share some of this stuff. We started talking about the kiddie porn and the sex trafficking. I got thinking, geez, that's he didn't want to talk about this stuff, I guess, for a long time. He kind of got in the groove of talking about some of the evils the Watchtower was involved with, and finally, the last program, he brought this out, and that's the last time we heard from him. So, wherever Johnny is, and I tried to contact him, like you said, Anne Marie. I went down to New York City. I tried to find out if anyone knew where Johnny was. And of course, came back empty-handed. But I still, to this day, always get very concerned when I hear a new caller coming in at night, or I see new phone numbers popping up here on my computer screen. That could be Johnny the Bethelite. So if you're out there, Johnny, I certainly would love it if you'd come back on and say hello to the audience. They'd love to hear from you. But we'll see. But so far, no results.
Yeah, it's been over 7 years. January 19th will be the last time that we heard him on the 6 screen. And for him to not call you or any communication, it's just, if we take away our cynicism and our emotions and what we think is crazy and just be practical and be logical, what makes the most sense? And you know what? As far as the mafia or gangs, at least they have a code. At least they don't pretend that they represent God and they're so pure and they're so good and they're so spiritual. At least the mafia and gangs and other crime organizations, you know what you're dealing with. Watchtower? Oh.
Hey, I like you're quite the gal when it comes to explaining things. You took something very, very complex and you reduced it very simple. I was wondering how you were going to do that, and you did an eloquent job just explaining the difference between the mafia, gangs, and the Watchtower. You can't say these gangs and the mafia had class. But how you explained it is at least you know where you stand with these guys. You don't know where you stand with the Watchtower. And they come across as so cunning, right? Good job, Anne Marie. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. You want to say your last few words here?
Well, as always, I always like to say, no matter what happens, no matter, who comes on the show, I always feel that what needs to be said will be said. And every show is very important. I thank everyone that came on the show and did a good job, my brother Rick. I'm glad you talked about your judicial hearing, and that was crafty what you did with the microphone.
Well, I'll tell you what, it worked, and it was the first, I'm not boasting, but it was the very first recorded judicial committee hearing. And, we got 1 million views, people coming in wanting to hear that. Unbelievable. So I look at it as an honor to be able to have the first judicial committee hearing for people to hear it. And, one thing too, and before we leave the program, I wanted to tell Matthew and some of the people listening in here today, here you are, a brother in good standing, but you became kind of critical of the Watchtower. So, they wanted to have a judicial committee hearing to talk to me. Now, you're Jehovah's Witness for 50 years. Good standing, answering, going out in service, serving as a servant, and you go into the judicial committee hearing, and they don't even say a prayer for you. And in any Christian organization, if the brother kind of went away from the organization or kind of went astray, they'd bring him in. The brothers would pray for him. Oh, let's pray for Brother Rick Farron here. Let's pray that he can at least see Jehovah in the way that he used to see it. Nothing like that. I mean, it wasn't Brother Farron's here for the meeting. It's Rick. So, I mean, this shows you that there's no feeling in the Watchtower. If they had a real feeling for you, they'd pray for you. Oh, Brother Farron, let's do a prayer before we decide what we're going to do with you. No, they don't do that. So it shows you how fraudulent, how unkind, inconsiderate the Watchtower is. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. My brother, I would just like to ask if you could possibly post a link to, the wherever, YouTube or whatever, current link, because thousands have come out of the Watchtower since you posted your judicial hearing. And I heard it once many years ago, but I haven't been able to find it. And I was just wondering if that's possible to repost the link, because I'm sure there are thousands that have never heard it.
Well, what we're doing right now, Anne-Marie, is I got my daughter, who is a really good graphic artist, and we're reconstructing the 6 screens. If you get in there now, 6 screens of the watchtower.com, you'll see a lot of changes taking place. We're going to resurrect all of these old files. We're going to have them up there so people will be able to. We're making it new. It kind of got outdated. You have to. So we've been working on this now for a while, but that's it should all be done within the next couple of months. It's a slow process. It's like writing a book, but we're going to have all the old calls, and you'll be able to listen to this stuff, and it's going to be very, very good for people who are just leaving the Watchtower now. You know, there's a lot of people, Anne-Marie, that are leaving the Watchtower right now. They have no idea that they're involved in the United Nations. They have no idea who Johannes Grieber was. Oh yeah, there's a lot. They don't know all of that. So we got to go back and pick up the crumbs on the trail and let people see all of this and how so many people have left the Watchtower on certain things. And that would fascinate me. If I was just leaving the Watchtower now, I would want to know what's causing people to get out. Why are people leaving the Watchtower? So I mean, they've been leaving for the eons of time here. So what are some of the reasons? And the 6 screens are going to explain all of that. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, my brother Rick.
And Matthew and Pixie and others, and Ken calling in saying thank you all for doing that. We're going to go to JW World News Sunday edition. Don't go anywhere. You're on the 6 screens Telenetwork. Thank you very much for spending your time with us on Jehovah's Witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower. Let's end the stream here. Stay with us, though. Don't go anywhere. We still have 3 programs coming up on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you.